Thank you all for attending. So what we're going to cover today is we're going to cover the basics of goal setting. There's some core goal setting techniques that are useful. And the premise of this class today is making goal setting work for you, making that actual process of reaching towards your goals and customizing that to how it works for you versus plugging you into an already existing system. You're kind of creating your own, but there are some basic techniques that are universally helpful. So we're going to cover those. We're going to cover actionable tasks and routines. So we're going to talk about, the different things, the different routines that you can set up for getting those tasks completed. And then beyond the routine, this is where we're going to start getting into customizing to your specific personality, work style. And then just getting to know yourself, kind of asking yourself those questions that you need to ask to get to that next level of achieving your goals. And then you're going to adapt. You're going to adapt your tools. You're going to adapt your style. You're going to adapt your tasks, your whatever it is that you set up, you're going to adapt that to what works best for you. And then action steps that you can take. There's actually going to be quite a bit of information in this presentation. We're going to send you a copy of the slides because time-wise, right, we're not going to go over every single suggestion that's in this presentation. It would take 2 or 3 hours probably to work those all through. But we want you to have them so that as you're setting your goals and as you're setting up how you're going to achieve them in the coming year, you've got them there is a good suggestion for you. And then how to avoid burnout. We're going to talk about that a little bit as well. And then we're going to provide you with a workbook that you can do at your convenience. It's going to cover some of the things that we're talking about today, but it includes some questionnaires to help you flesh out and a couple of little, mini exams for you that will help you flesh out how to proceed. And then we're also offering at the end a planner for you. Okay, so the basics of goal setting, obviously the first one's pretty clear, define your goal. Many times we have more than one goal. So there's a book out called The One Thing, and this is the hardest thing in the world for me to stick to. Audra can attest. I work better if I have at least 2 to 3 things going on at the same time. However, if I start getting above that, it's too much. Right. And then I kind of lose that momentum in all areas. So there is a premise behind The One Thing. It's actually a very good premise. But again, it goes back to how do people work and think. And so I'm one that I do better if I have 2 or 3 things going on at the same time that I can work on versus just one, while other people, one at a time, finish it, go to the next. So whatever works for you. But either way, you've got to define that goal. The SMART method. So we're going to actually provide a handout a little bit later on. We're going to provide a handout, and your goals should always be specific, always be measurable, always be achievable, be relevant, and time-bound for maximum effectiveness. And we're going to talk about that more a little bit later. Break it down and prioritize. So dividing your goals into smaller manageable steps to make progress feel achievable and less overwhelming is huge. And identifying which goals and tasks are the most urgent or impactful. For me, sometimes I really do need to have it out in writing so that I don't get distracted by the minutia, right? I need to look for those big impactful things that I can do. Setting deadlines, that's an important piece, right? You don't want to set unrealistic deadlines. So there's a theory or a belief that success breeds success. So you really, especially as you're starting out, you want to make sure that any deadlines that you set are manageable, right, and realistic. And then I actually have she's actually related, a cousin of mine. She's written, I've decided, And an important aspect to goal setting and accomplishing those goals is what I love is the I've decided, right? So if a goal is optional for you, if it's okay not to meet a deadline, if it's okay not to meet that goal somewhere in the back of your mind, if you haven't decided you're going to reach it, it's really going to change how you tackle your deadlines and your tasks over the year to get you to your goals. It'll make a big difference. So think about that. Her name is Kim Martin. If you want to look up the book, I've decided it's a great book. Track your progress. That helps you. It just helps you see how far you've come, which you need. You're going to want to celebrate those victories, and also helps you see what you need to do ahead. I always say if you don't know the next step to take, or if you don't know all the steps to take, just take the one step you do know. So just start with that first step. So if you have, a phrase was going around back, probably 30 years ago now, called BHAGs, big, hairy, audacious, big, hairy, audacious goals, right? When those goals get really big, it's important to evaluate your progress and keep that in mind and make adjustments as you need and all of those things. So, but I love the BHAGs, and not very many, Travis, not very many people know what those are anymore. So,
it's a Gary Keller.
All right, stay flexible. Being open to adjusting, things change. In fact, opportunities happen too. When you're keeping an eye out, I had a friend of mine just say to me, I was looking for a specific opportunity in an area, and he said, you just need to be open, right? You just need to start looking, be open. And man, it's amazing what happens when you start looking for those opportunities. And that's part of being flexible, because you may see the opportunities that might launch you forward a lot faster. And celebrating your successes, right? Making sure that you really stay motivated to keep going and celebrate those successes. And it could be, you get your first, 20 deals in the first quarter of next year, right? And then that's okay, I'm going on vacation, right? So, Suzanne, where would you want to go on vacation?
Right now, with it being cold, I would like to go down to somewhere way, way down, Mexico somewhere.
Okay. Yeah. I know somebody that does trade trips to Mexico, so we'll have to talk about that sometime.
Yes,
yeah, cool.
All right. So actionable tasks and routines. This is one of those things where Audrey knows this. Time blocking is like one of my biggest pet peeves related to goal setting, but it's here because it is a valid way of it is a valid routine, right? To reach your goals. And some people do very, very, very well with time blocking. So I always say time blocking can look the way you want it to. So when somebody says to me time blocking and they say, Jenny, you need to, between 9 and 10 every Monday morning, make X amount of calls. You need to, at 4 p.m., do X, Y, and Z. I'm not good with that. I don't respond well to it. I don't do well with it. But if I time block in the sense of, okay, I know that I do X tasks better in the morning. I know I do X tasks better in the evening. And I'm going to go ahead and spend X amount of time each week on each different thing. So I time block in a slightly different way. But time blocking is definitely effective. So there you go. That's something that can be really powerful in what you're doing. However, as an agent, I do find, if you have somebody that wants to go out showing, whatever was in that time block, I guarantee you every single agent's going to go out showing. So, task prioritization. I can't even say it this morning. Task prioritization. Somebody else say it for me. I can't.
Task prioritization.
Thank you. Urgent and important, always do immediately, right? Always do those most important things first. The things that are not necessarily urgent but still in the important category, they go next, of course, and then urgent, not important, delegate if possible, not urgent, important, goes onward and forward, right? And then, one of the things to consider too is if a task is not super urgent or important, can you eliminate it? Number one, does it really have to be done? Or can it go to the bottom of the list? Or I always say, can you delegate it, right? Is it a task you can delegate? So think about delegation and how much your time is worth. That's another big piece of reaching your goals every year, I think, is making sure that where you're spending your time is in the area that nobody else can do. And then allow yourself to delegate the tasks that are low monetary or things that somebody else can effectively do for you. So free up your time to do the money making. Be the rainmaker. Morning and evening, right? So review goals, plan your day, and then in the evening you're reflecting, you're looking back, you're evaluating, and then decide what you got to do the next day. Habit stacking, I personally love this one. So if you're making coffee in the morning, you can take that, or drinking your coffee, you can make that time in the morning to write the quick to-do list for the day, or you can, if you have a planner like what I have. So I've already set out for each month, I already set out what my goals are for that month and what my tasks are going to be and that kind of thing. I kind of review those and take a quick look at where I'm at on those and what my top 3 things for that day need to be. So, but I love the habit stacking. So getting into being able to integrate something else into something you already do. Productivity techniques. Now, this is a great one, and some people need this, but it's like work really hard for 25 minutes. It's something they do with kids that are doing homework, right? Work really hard for 25 minutes and take a 5-minute break. It works really well. For people like myself, if I'm in the zone and I'm working and you interrupt me, it's going to take me at least 10 minutes to get back to where I was and to get back into the zone. And so for me, taking a 5-minute break every 25 minutes, I'm getting 15 minutes of work done for that. So really. So for some people, it doesn't work. This is part of that tying to what's unique to you, knowing yourself well enough to know how you can adjust these routines. Weekly and monthly planning, right? I think that's a big part to keep you going, is that you set aside, as part of your goal setting, you set aside every week or every month your planning and your review. And your reevaluation, and that goes back to the being able to adjust, right? So if you're doing that weekly and monthly review, then you're going to be able to adjust. Use the tools and systems available to you. I'm a Google Calendar user myself. Love it. Depending on what I'm doing for my TC business, I actually use a simple program called Realty Juggler. It's just super simple. Anybody can use it. I can easily teach it to others that are helping me, that kind of thing. And so I love that system specifically just for transaction management. Google Keep It is another one of my favorites. Physical tools, planners or notebooks. I have the yellow pads, the yellow legal pads. I have those. I've probably got 10 of those in my house right now. And probably right now, 4 of them have a different project on them. So depending again on what works best for you, but I love that. I love the planner. I love the notebooks. Declutter and optimization of your workspace, big deal. It's amazing how much that will clear your brain if the area that you're working is clean and organized. It makes a huge difference. Okay. Oops, sorry. Mouse is, come on, there we go. Okay, so build an accountability partner. So get an accountability partner to have meetings with. Audrey's mine. She's fabulous at it, by the way. But having an accountability partner is super helpful because it just helps motivate you. You don't want to go to that meeting and going, yeah, I didn't do anything this week. I didn't meet any of my goals. it just gives you a different subconscious level of motivation, which is great, but it also helps you with the areas that you're stuck. You might have been stuck on a specific thing this week, and being able to talk that out sometimes will help you get unstuck. And also, I know Audrey a lot of times will suggest things that I'm like, oh yeah, that's a great idea. So having that is really helpful. I do that for others. I have an agent particularly that I do that for with her goals. So yeah, it's been good. Wellness and self-care, big thing. Women, we tend to have a harder time with that than guys tend to have. So I'm going to encourage the ladies in our group today. Wellness and self-care really need to be a priority, because once you're full, you're energized, all those things you're taking care of, it's so much easier to do all the things we need to do. So beyond those basic routines, right, now we're going to get into the more customizing of what works for you. But the reality is that setting goals and keeping the momentum are two completely different things. It's so easy to lose steam. Travis, like you said, you get busy doing the walk, walking the walk, that kind of the goal setting tracking side of things just goes by the wayside. So I got to ask you just a question. Do you think if you kept the goals in front of you, do you think it would change your end result or your end production or whatever it is that your goal is? Do you think that would change for you if you could keep it kind of in sight all year long? Or
Well, sure. Yeah. But I mean, I'm a digital nomad, so I'm in 1,000 different places. Like I'm in Starbucks, and then I'm sitting here, or I'm at the office. So maybe I need to change my screensaver or something to give you my vision board and goals.
That's actually a great way. That's a great customized way, right, of keeping it in front of you. Absolutely. And that's part of this, is figuring out what works best for you and what's going to keep you energized too, right? For sure. One size doesn't fit all. Everybody has their unique strengths and weaknesses and work styles, and what energizes one person might not work for another. So I'll have a great example. My broker, I love him to death. He thrives on networking, right? Just thrives on it. Loves the big groups and the big events and all of those things. And that sucks my energy. I love the one-on-one or small groups, do really well with that. And I love that. And I thrive in that, right? I love that connection, and that energizes me. And so everybody's a little bit different, and not any one way is wrong or right. It's just what makes the world go round. And I always think that's how we complement each other and make a good team, is because we're all a little bit different. So, and part of setting this up is going to be aligning your self awareness with the goal achieving strategies, right? So that's what we're going to do here ahead. Okay, so the first step is understanding your how, aligning with your strengths and circumventing your weaknesses. Let's just admit it, we all have them. We don't like to admit them, but we do have them. So being able to circumvent those, I'm going to say, is going to be your superpower, right? And it's not about good or bad. It's just what is. It just is. So what's your motivation? Everybody is motivated differently, right? So some people are motivated by the vision of what they see in the future going forward, having that goal, right? And then other people are actually motivated by what they don't want, right? The undesired outcomes. And you can have, depending on what it is you want, it could be both. It could be either or both, right? So it can get pretty complex as far as what's motivating you behind a vision or a goal that you have. As a general rule of thumb, obviously the positive is better than the negative, right? The positive can drive you in a way that the negative can't. So being able to focus on that vision or keep that vision out there in front of you is a huge part of the process. I had a mentor, and she would tell the story. She told it so well. I'm going to do the short version. But the basic idea is that when you're driving down the road you tend to move the wheel, right? You tend to go wherever it is you're looking. So if you're a looky lure and you're out looking off this way or that way, you're tending to drive that direction. And so she would use the Taj Mahal as her example. You really want to go there, but over here on the left is the city dump, and you're really afraid you're going to end up at the city dump and you don't want to go there, but you keep looking at it. So where do you end up? You end up at the city dump. It's where you look. So having that vision or goal always in front of you and out there where you're looking at it every day. I think I've got it somewhere in our presentation, but I actually have a home design that I love that's in my head. I have a picture of it. I have a picture up of it so that it's in my mind all the time. That's one of my goals. That's one of my visions for the future. And I want to see it. I want to be reminded of it. So, all right. You can be a mix, a change from one or the other, depending on the goal. All right. Eyes open, right? Look within. So part of the workbook, section of the workbook is going to help you through this, but it's basically what are your strengths and weaknesses, what motivates you, what slows you down or causes you to disengage, what skills do you do well, capitalize on those all day long. If you're organized, analytical, creative, whatever it is, capitalize on those and find ways to double down on them, right? So whatever you do well, double down on it. What don't you do well? For me, that's obviously, you can see I put in here what I don't do well: bookkeeping, network, staying on task. Actually, I can do that. But what don't you do well? You want to also know that. And for those things, you may even want to consider that's when you hire an assistant, or that's, whether it's a AI thing that you can use to circumvent that. Whatever it is that you don't do well, figure out either how to circumvent it, who you can hire to it. There's a book called E-Myth Revisited. And one of the things I loved about that book, and I cannot remember the author off the top of my head, but one of the things that I loved about that book that he talked about was basically hiring to your weakness. You're only as good as your weakest employee, right? Which when we're in this kind of a business, that's us. And so sometimes, a lot of times, agents tend to not be good at the paperwork side of things. So that's where they hire an assistant, or maybe it's the marketing per se, getting on the social media, so they hire to that. So whatever it is you aren't good at, consider hiring that. And then the workbook will give you a deeper dive into that subject. Okay. All right. So adapting goal setting tactics. You're going to investigate, reflect, experiment, and adjust, right? So I think adaptation really happens all year long, right? Different things can affect us. We might have a high stress level. Maybe we have an elderly parent we're helping to take care of part of the year. Whatever it can be, there are things that life happens, right? So there's things that can affect our routine. They can affect our plans. And so there's always going to be adapting and adjusting to that. So here's some examples. We're just going to go through a few because, again, I don't want to keep you all day, right? You are going to get these in the materials that we're going to give you as well before the end of the class. So as an example, right, if you're a structured person, then setting a detailed schedule with time blocking and milestones, right, that's a big deal. Use a planner or an app, a weekly and monthly tasks. So that is how somebody who tends to be structured. But if you tend to be more flexible, right, then you can embrace your adaptability by setting broader daily and weekly goals and use task lists without the strict deadlines, right? You might have a loose deadline, like say by the end of the week, but anytime during that week, you can get that list done. Being detail oriented, right? Breaking the larger goals into micro tasks. So creating a step-by-step checklist, right? Big picture thinker. You might use a vision board or set broad milestones to guide the process, right? So you've got your fast starter, your slow starter, all those things. There's something different you can do than somebody else. And so it's about taking that in, whatever that is for you, and then using that to create your action of how you're going to reach a goal. So analytical thinker versus creative thinker. Sometimes Audrey has to give me that little push to keep me moving forward, because I can tend to get analytical and kind of get stuck in my own little circle of analyzing something. And she's extremely creative. And so the two of us together work really well because of that, right? We fill each other's blank spots, so to speak. But we can, and having that accountability partner, see, that's one place that an accountability partner can help you, because in this case, she kind of gets me out of my own circle of thinking, over analyzing something. So here's some more examples. You might be a team player, you might be a procrastinator or perfectionist, right? So I have to admit, I think I'm a recovering perfectionist. I used to be a super perfectionist. And so setting good enough standards and limit time spent on certain tasks is very helpful for the perfectionist, right? So that said, we'll go on. And here's a few more: long-term planner, if you're impulsive, logical, emotional, right? So I like early bird and night owl. There's, very different opposites there. And so high priority tasks for early hours works better for the early bird. And then the night owl, right? Scheduling deep work during evening hours works better. And we can, by the way, change over our lifetime. We can go from one to the other. I used to be a night owl. Now I'm an early bird. So call that age. Can just be because I'm getting old, right? So, but these are meant to be examples for you so that as you go through the workbook, you can refer back to these, just to kind of help you process, like, what would you do? What would you do differently for that specific type of thing? Okay, action steps. So the big thing is identifying the tools that you need and the ones that you will actually use. So like Travis, it sounds like you're very tech oriented. So having something that's on your computer or your devices is probably to your benefit. Suzanne, are you a paper person or a tech person?
I'm 100% paper person. I'm one of those that's got a legal pad for every subject I'm working on separately. And I keep up with all of that. I'm better with that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So knowing that, that's pretty easy, right? And then I don't know if you get frustrated, but I get frustrated with some of the planners. I used to be Stephen Covey planners. I used to have those back in the day.
Yeah.
And so now I just make my own. So if you have a hard time finding something that resonates with you, that aligns with what your style is and how you work, then I always say create it. In fact, last night, middle of the night, you guys, I'm not kidding you, I think it was like 3 a.m. I woke up, I couldn't get back to sleep, and all I could keep thinking about was, how do I put my planner in an app? So literally 3 a.m. That's what I'm thinking about. How do I get my planner into an app? So then having your CRM, website, social media tools, right? Content creation like ChatGPT. By the way, I love ChatGPT. Audrey laughs at me a little bit, I think, because I think I've actually got a relationship going with ChatGPT. I feel like I've gotten really good at the prompts, and it knows my tone, right? Because I want it to be me. I want it to be my tone. And so it knows it pretty well. And so, yeah, I feel like I have this little relationship. So like before today's presentation, of course, I'm like, okay, ChatGPT, here it is. Here's my presentation. How long is it going to take to present this? Love it. It gives me exactly, well, if this, then that. You know, it can take you between 60 minutes to 85 minutes, you know, depending on X, Y, and Z. I love it. So I love Chat GPT. It's one of my favorites. There are others out there, but that, and there's some more coming out. I think Blaze is another one. It's just not free, but it specifically focuses and says that it mimics you. It mimics your tone. If you're sarcastic, it'll mimic that kind of thing. So whiteboard or digital board, right? So having I used to have whiteboards in my office. So for the TC business, before I moved, actually, I had 5 people working out of the front of my office. I had whiteboards, multiple whiteboards. It was the only way I could keep track of what we needed to keep track of at the time. You know, technology's evolved and I wouldn't need that now, but at the time, whiteboards were the way to go. Vision board or images, whether digital or on your devices, or, you know, I love that suggestion of like a screensaver. But having some sort of vision board is a great idea. A lot of the title companies will do vision board classes this time of year. So just something to consider if that's, you know, something that interests you. So. The SMART method. Audrey, can you put our handout in the chat?
Yeah, let me grab that.
Okay. So SMART method, I'm not going to belabor it. It will be in the handout for you. But again, it's going to be specific and measurable, achievable. If you're having a hard time with measurable, sometimes that's an issue. Then that's where an accountability partner can really come in and help you hash that out. Achievable, relevant, right? And then relevant to your goal, and then time bound, right? Like setting those time limits and when you want to achieve it by, and even down to how much time you're going to spend on something is something important to think about. And by the way, everything always takes longer than we think it's going to. We sit down to do a social media post. We think it's going to take us 5 minutes, and half an hour later, you know, we're still working on it. So, okay, I'm still working on it. Audrey would be done in 2 minutes. So that's kind of the idea. And then to guide you through that part, you know, refer to the SMART Action Steps worksheet in module 4 of the workbook and the class handout. So, and the workbook is not huge, it's not complex, it's very straightforward and very easy to get through. And we'll go through that in just a second. So, avoiding burnout, break the goals into manageable steps. Again, that's part of the SMART system too, but breaking it down into those achievable steps is less overwhelming. So depending on how big your goal is, obviously. Set realistic timelines. So again, that's a really important piece. You want your success to build on success. And if you're struggling to meet those timelines, you're going to get discouraged, and then it's going to feel a little bit futile if you're not hitting those timeline goals. Prioritizing self-care, we kind of touched on that already. Again, that tends to be more of a female, women thing than a guy thing, but definitely important to do. And then celebrating the wins. And this is all about avoiding that burnout, right? So it's important to keeping going, so making sure that you celebrate those wins, and then practice flexibility, right? Adjust your deadlines if circumstances change without guilt or frustration, right? Don't get caught up in I woulda, shoulda, coulda. That's so easy to get caught up into. Limit the number of simultaneous goals. Again, you know, kind of talked about this. For me, I thrive on 2 or 3, but I don't when we get more than that. Some people, they do better on just one goal at a time. And, you know, in the realm of real estate, let's just say one goal is to transition from straight residential to, say, farm and ranch, right? The second goal would be you want X amount of transactions in the year. A third goal could be you want to, you want to address health issues over the year as well. Use the time blocking. That can help with avoiding the burnout again, but you can twist the time blocking to how it works for you. I kind of, again, hate that word. I haven't come up with a better word yet for it than that, but setting aside the time that you need is an important piece, and staying dedicated to it. So again, deciding that it's important enough. I had a mentor friend of mine. I said, you know, I was struggling through a specific goal I was trying to get to, and I was like, I felt like I was beating my head against the wall. And he said to me, Jenny, why did something else become more important? That seems like such a simple question, right? Because hello, right? But reality is, when we have a goal, when we're really determined, we've decided we're going to get there, we make that our priority. So the question is, why did something else become more important that stopped us from that progress? And it could be legitimate things. Don't get me wrong. It could be the health of a loved one. It could be, you know, you had surgery. It could be, you know, something else more important, maybe something for your kids came up, whatever it is, right? It could be very legitimate, but asking that question can change your whole perception of the frustration you're feeling about that goal and avoiding that burnout. It could be, okay, well, this was the legitimate thing that came more important. Or it could be like, oh, well, you know, I went to the Dallas game and I guess that wasn't more important than this, and you refocus. So asking that question, why did something become more important? Monitor progress regularly. And that's just, you know, the self-check, right? Going back in and evaluating where you're at in the process. Staying connected with your why, your motivation. So is your motivation to go have that trip to Mexico, or is your motivation a winter home in Mexico, right? Is your motivation being able to take a cruise around the world? Is your motivation putting your kid through college? So staying connected with your why. Learning to say no. So for me, this is one that I admit I struggle with sometimes, is I take on too much, and I take on things that don't necessarily align with my priorities or my goals. I tend to, I get fed by helping others. And so a lot of times I've caught myself putting my own needs or goals to get to my goals, right? So the things I need to do, I put those on hold because I want to help somebody else. And so it didn't really align with my priorities. Now, don't get me wrong. You always want to be there to help others, right? I mean, we make the world go round when we work together, right? But you have to know when it's time to say no, because you're completely ignoring your own needs and your own
Put
goals.
the oxygen mask on yourself first before
Yes.
you assist the other passengers.
I love that. Yes, exactly. Yes, absolutely. So mix structure with flexibility, and for all of us, that's going to be a different mix, right? Leave room for the unexpected challenges or inspiration to keep things fresh. Absolutely, it's a big deal. Use visualization techniques. This is so powerful. When I was younger, I used to approach this one with a measure of skepticism, but it actually is very powerful. So visualizing yourself reaching your goal, visualizing yourself doing the things that are tough that you feel. Let's just use video as one of the examples for agents, especially, right? Getting in front of video for many agents is a challenge, right? So visualizing yourself doing the video and pulling it off and doing it well and doing it dynamically and all those things, that's a great way to keep going and energize yourself. So use that visualization. Leverage accountability, right? Leverage that friend or coach or mentor that can offer support and encouragement. Big deal. If I were to say anything that you could do in your planning and in the coming year to keep yourself on track, is an accountability partner all the way, every single time, all the way. And I don't care if you're somebody who generally is pretty accomplished at reaching and hitting their goals, or if you're someone who may struggle on that road to getting to your goals, right? You get distracted or whatever. Having that accountability partner 100% will change the dynamic amazingly. So it's definitely worth finding an accountability partner. Automating or delegating tasks, excuse me, especially the less critical ones, very, very huge, right? Getting rid of the things that don't actually align with your purpose, they don't align with your goals, getting rid of those completely, and then automating or delegating those other tasks that you can, so that it's easier and you spend less time on them. Absolutely, 100% do that. Focus on progress, not perfection. For some of us, that's hard. Perfection is a big deal, right? Finding the balance. I teach a communication class, and I kind of talk about you have people that are the get it done, get it right. They're the get it done crowd, the get it right crowd, and I apologize, there's two others I can't think of right now. But definitely that motivation, the perfection, that comes into play. And then perfectionists also tend to be very hard on themselves. And so that can create that situation for burnout. All right. All right. So the workbook, give me a second. I'm going to pull up our workbook. I want to go through that really quickly in the little time that we have left here. I want to kind of review that with you. This is going to be a great tool for you to take maybe later today. 2025 is coming up quickly, right? And go through this and go ahead and kick out your goals. And also, I would say with your goals, a great question to ask. Sometimes we set goals based on what we've always done, based on what we think we can do, not on what we want to do. We might set our goals based on other people's expectations. So I always say, it's really good for you to really evaluate if the goals you're setting actually align with your joy and your purpose. I got caught recently, Audrey knows, in trying to meet some goals that really didn't feed me, didn't help me, and only stressed me out. And they really didn't align with me as a person. So sometimes we get caught in that little trap, all of us at some point or another. And so it's always good to ask that question.
Do you want me to drop the link for the workbook?
Yes, would you please? Thank you. Okay. Going to make this a bit smaller. Are you guys able to see the PDF? Is that popping up?
Mm-hmm.
The goal
You're
setting.
still
Okay. I'm going to stop presenting. Hold on. We're going to. There it is. Got to find the right way. I have 100 windows open. All right, let's see if this works. All right, is it popping up there for you?
I see it, but I don't see how to do anything with it.
Oops. Okay.
If you look in chat, there's a link to the PDF if you want to see it yourself.
Yes, if you want to
download it from that link.
Yes. So, and what we're going to do here is kind of just review it so you know, after we're done with class, how to go through it. All right, so you all can see it now?
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, so basically, obviously, you have modules, right, to go through, which is understanding your work style, knowing yourself, your strengths and your weaknesses, adapting goal setting tactics, right? And so you're going to actually, at that point, under module 3, you may want to refer back to our presentation, which you're also going to get, Audrey, if you haven't dropped that, if you will. The presentation today, which had some of those adapting tactics, right? So you can refer back to that as a guide as well. And then action steps for 2025, which include the SMART method, identifying what you need, and of course, action steps. And then, so you're going to have a little intro here, and then the roadmap, which is the modules, what you're going to be doing. And then we're going to jump right into it as understanding your work style. And you are going to have a little, so an explanation of some of the different work styles, right, for you. And then you're going to jump into, let me get down here, a questionnaire. So by the time you get to, I think that's page 9, you're going to have a questionnaire, a little multiple choice to fill out. And very simple answer key is how many of the A's did you answer? You know, how many times was A your answer? How many times was C your answer? And you're going to add those up. And then here's your answer key and how you figure your percentage. So if you answered, 3 out of 7, then 3 divided by 7 times 100 is your percentage, right? And so sometimes you're going to be, we're never all one thing or all another. And so just knowing your percentages. So for instance, as an example, your percentage would be as dynamic, action-oriented, be 43%, 29%. It's going to help give you a vision of the unique tactics that you're going to use for your style, right? So you're going to interpret your results, and then we're going to go down here that we're going to address your strengths and weaknesses as well. Same thing. You're going to have a multiple choice. It's kind of walk you through that process and what your strengths and weaknesses are. And then same thing, you're going to do an answer key, which is basically scoring how many of each letter answer did you do. So did you do 5 B's and 10 C's or whatever that was, and that's going to be how you get to your percentage. Okay. And then action steps based on strengths and weaknesses. So then we go through those, such as action-oriented, structured, relational, analytical, and we go through some of those techniques, right? And then we go a little bit, some of these are going to be reflective things for you to reflect on, going beyond that questionnaire. And then you're going to be able to have a place to put your uniqueness, right? Because we can't cover everything. It's unending. We're all super unique. And so you can go down here and you can put your strengths and your weaknesses, and then you can evaluate how am I going to use it or how am I going to circumvent it. So if it's a strength, how am I going to double down on it? And if it's a weakness, how am I going to circumvent that? Are you going to hire somebody to circumvent that? Or are you going to, let's just say, you have a hard, you lose track of time. Let's just say that one of the things you do is you lose track of time, and so you don't get to the next thing on your list or whatever. So maybe how you circumvent that is you set a alarm on your phone to go off, or you set a calendar reminder. So what is it that you specifically are going to do to double down or circumvent on those strengths and weaknesses? Okay, then we've got the adapting and goal setting tactics section that you're going to go through, as well as the SMART method, right? And then you're going to go here to a worksheet for action steps for setting your goals. So it's going to be, what is your goal? What exactly do you want to accomplish, right? What would be involved in that? So this is where we get down to the nitty gritty. Once you get to module 4, you're going to get into the nitty gritty of that actual creating that plan, right? So all of the first part is the how, getting to know yourself, what do you need to do differently than say somebody else might need to do? And then here under module 4 is where you're getting into the nuts and bolts of actually setting those goals. Okay, and a place for your action plan, etc. So you're going to go into here into potential barriers, support system. This could be an accountability partner, right? And so one of the things that, oh, go ahead. So one of the things you may want to do is one of your first tasks would be to connect with somebody to become accountability partners with each other. Okay. And then basically just your wrap up and reflection, and then a place for your final notes and any ahas that you kind of get out of the process that are helpful. And then personally, I would just recommend that you save this and refer back to this periodically as part of your review. Maybe you want to do that every quarter, right? You might just want to revisit this once a quarter, kind of take a look at it compared to, you know, your goal setting and those action steps that you're taking and tracking, right?